Hi neighbors, it's Nikki with Pastelito Sourdough Bakery, and today we're going to go over the tools needed to make sourdough bread. So just starting out here, you'll see on the counter a lot of the tools that I use when I make my sourdough bread. And at the very end, we'll go over, what is the bare essential. But for right now, we're gonna go step by step and see what kind of things you might want to grab if you want to start making sourdough bread. All of these tools make it a lot easier to do. So let's get started with the bowl. So the bowl is very important. You do need a bowl to mix your flour, your water, and everything together. This jar right here, this is what I keep my sourdough starter in. It's just a regular canning jar, and this size spatula is very, very crucial. I find it to be so helpful to get the sourdough starter out of the jar, to scrape the sides clean. This size is just wonderful. I also use a larger size spatula as well. That just kind of helps when I'm cleaning the jar over in the sink, or even just scraping the sides of the bowl. That's very helpful as well. Now the first step when you're mixing your sourdough bread is you put in the starter, and then you put in the water. So tools for water. I find it very helpful to mix my water in a separate reciprocal. So it could be a measuring cup, it could be a bowl, it could be really anything that you have that you can mix water in. Now, why a separate reciprocal? It has to be a certain temperature. So some tools to find out what temperature your water is, and to get the correct temperature, is this electric water boiler. This is so helpful. I use it so much. You can also use, a stovetop one. That's absolutely fine. Takes a little bit longer, but not a problem. And then you need a thermometer. So you want to get a certain temperature in the water, and we'll go over all that in a different video. But this thermometer, this digital thermometer, is a wonderful, wonderful tool. I just got it off of Amazon. And it helps me measure the temperature of the water, helps me measure the temperature of the dough as well. In sourdough baking, a lot of people consider temperature as the fourth ingredient. So you have flour, water, your sourdough starter, and then temperature. Because the temperature can affect the rise of sourdough bread like no other. So definitely important to get a thermometer. Now, once you pour the water in and then you add the flour, to do all of that, you actually need a scale. So in sourdough baking, you can find recipes that are by cup, 3/4 cup, half cup, whatever. But typically, you're going to find recipes that are in grams. This makes the recipe much more accurate, especially with flour. You could have 1 cup of flour super packed down, and that's gonna weigh different than just a scoop of flour just kind of like leveled off. That's gonna be much lighter. So to get more accurate measurements, sourdough bread recipes are typically in grams. So you'll wanna pick yourself up a scale. I love this scale. It's, more, it's just easier, fits the dough on there very well, big, nice big letters, also on Amazon, but any scale will work. I'll use this scale all the time. You'll also use your scale when you're measuring out and feeding your sourdough starter. So I'll use this scale for my sourdough starter measurements, and then maybe I'll use this scale to measure out the dough. The bowl is typically pretty heavy, so some of these smaller scales, they have max weights that they can hold. And so just double check that, you know, the weight of your bowl plus the flour plus the water, your scale can handle that. That's just really the most important thing. So you'll definitely want a scale. Now, once you have all of the flour and water and everything mixed in here, you're going to let it rise, right? While it's rising, this is going to be super funny, but a shower cap. This saves so much time. You just put it up, you know, on top of the bowl. It keeps that moisture in while it's rising. It's pretty funny, but just a typical regular old shower cap. And there you have it. So I can reuse these a couple times if they don't get dirty. As soon as they get dirty or if the dough touches it, then I just throw them away and use a new one. So definitely shower caps help. Now the next tool that you would need is once the dough is ready, it's fully proofed, you're gonna be pre-shaping it and final shaping it. And to do that, you will need a bench scraper. So this bench scraper you can get off of Amazon. It's called a dough cutter, apparently. And so you just pour the dough, you let the dough kind of come out. And then typically a recipe for sourdough is usually two loaves. So if you want to get accurate, then you know, add up all the grams, divide it in two, and then you could use your scale to get the loaves completely precise. If you're just baking for yourself, for friends, for family, you know, no worries. Just dump it out, eyeball it, and cut it in half. Okay, so that's what this dough scraper is good for, is cutting the dough. And it's also really good for shaping the dough. So you're definitely going to need a dough scraper to be able to do that as well. Once you have your two loaves and they're pre-shaped and they're just kind of resting, I like to put a tea towel over the dough to keep it, you know, safe, to keep it moist, to keep it warm, to just protect it. So I'll put the tea towel over the two balls of dough as it's resting and waiting for final shaping. Now with final shaping, you are going to need banneton. So a banneton is typically made out of bamboo. It's kind of spiraled and connected with little tiny nails. These bannetons are typically more expensive. So if you can get one of these, that will be fantastic. Usually they'll come with a cover, just like this. There you go. So you can put your final shape dough in here with the cover, or if you flour your dough very well with rice flour or the banneton, then you can put the dough like straight into the banneton. So this is one option of bannetons, but really you can use anything that's round. As long as it holds the shape that you're looking for, you can use it. So this is a chip basket, like $2 on Amazon. So I use these all the time. I cover it with the tea towel. I put the rice flour in, I put the dough in, and then I wrap up those little dough babies and get them ready for cold proof in the fridge. This is another size as well. This is a round chip basket, also super cheap. So if you don't want to spend the money to get these nicer ones, I think they're like, I don't know, $17, maybe $20, I'm not quite sure. Then you have definitely a lot of different options. Even if you have smaller glass bowls, I've used those in a pinch. This is too big unless you're making a giant bread. But if you have smaller bowls, you can use, just a regular bowl. Bannetons is just like you just need a round reciprocal that your dough will hold its shape while it's cold proofing in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours. So that's a very important tool. Now, the next step will be after the 12 to 24 hours, you take the dough out of the fridge, right? So let's just take this. We'll take it out of the fridge. Now it's time to bake. And so the tools for baking are as follows. This is amazing. This is a sourdough sling, I believe it's called. It is so fantastic for cooking inside of our cast iron or Dutch oven pots. These are heated up to 500 degrees. They are so hot. You do not want to take your beautiful dough babies and just try to, get them in there without, burning your hands, without touching. So with these sourdough slings, makes it so easy. You just pour your little dough baby out onto there, you drop it in there, on there, and then when you're ready to bake it, you just slide it right in and put the top on, and your dough baby is ready to get baked in the oven. So I highly recommend these. You don't have to have them. It's not completely 100% necessary. It just makes your job easier. Instead of these, what I used before was parchment paper. So I would just take some parchment paper and kind of like make strips. I would cut strips and I would lay it out on the table, put the dough on there, and then I was able to lift it from the parchment paper. Now make sure the parchment paper you get says that it can withhold safe oven temperatures. This one says oven safe to 425 degrees. So as soon as I lower the oven temperature to 425, when I start cooking the dough, then that parchment paper is safe. I can't use that when the oven's at 500 preheating. That won't work. It just gets really cooked really quickly. So Dutch oven, must have. Dough sling, nice to have. And once you take your dough baby out and put it on your sling, you are going to score it. So tools for scoring. We have our loms. This right here is a UFO lom. You can look at it. It's it's round, fits in your hand very easily. And then this is the lom that that usually comes in the sourdough kits. Sometimes you can buy sourdough kits online. You'll typically get a lom like this. Also very useful. It's like a handle, and you put the razor on the tip. Speaking of razors, I just use shaving razors. You can see what they look like right here. Very, very useful to have these on hand. So as soon as this starts to get dull, I switch it out right away. If you want really nice scoring on your bread, you want to have a very sharp razor. So I typically bake, like 80 loaves at a time. So I'll switch this out almost every bake. But you want to really keep an eye out and see when it's getting dull, because you don't want to be using a dull knife to get these very precise cuts that you'll see on the loaf. So another very, very helpful tool. You definitely need some sort of lom. I've seen people just hold the razor blade, so you don't actually need a stick or a UFO lom. I've seen many people just holding the razor blade. So something that's easy to cut. I've also seen people say they like to use scalpels. So, that's another option as well. So in regards to the next tool, this right here is just kind of like a shaker, I guess you can call it. And so once I put the dough onto the sling, I'll shake some rice flour over the top, spread it around with my hand, and I'll use one of my loms to cut the design in it. Once it's designed, I just pick it up, stick it in my Dutch oven pot, and then put this inside the oven for baking. Now, just a few more tools that I find useful is a timer. You don't know how many times you can lose track. of time. So these timers are great. If you have your phone, a lot of times I'll set my timers on my phone, but you will need a timer of some sort for sure. So these are very easy to use, just minutes, and they beep and they catch your attention. A couple other tools that are really helpful is an oven thermometer. This will tell you, this you keep inside of your oven, and it tells you the temperature that it's at. I've heard of many people, sometimes their oven, the dial or the digital says it's at 425, but it's actually at 375 or 320. That is going to affect your bake. So if you have any thoughts that maybe your oven is a little bit off, just pick up a couple of these or one of these online, and this will tell you the exact oven. I say a couple just because sometimes I'll put one in the front and one in the back, or one on the top and one on the bottom. Because your oven has hot spots. So it's really nice to get to know your oven, so you know how it will react how the bread will react with the heat that's actually in your oven. Another great tool is a fridge thermometer. So when you're using your home fridge, it really fluctuates on temperature. So this refrigerator thermometer really helps to make sure that your dough is cold proofing between 30 and 40 degrees, or you can see, hey, the back right corner is the right temperature, so that's where I'm gonna put my dough babies, or the bottom left, so you kind of can see where your cold spots and where your warm spots are in your home refrigerator. And very last item would be, of course, a bread knife. So you do all this work, you make this delicious, amazing sourdough bread. You're gonna need something to cut it with. You're gonna need a bread knife. There's a ton of great bread knives online, but definitely get yourself one. You do not want to be using a dull bread knife. For example, this does not work to cut sourdough bread. You want a nice sharp bread knife, because sourdough does have a very hearty crust to it, so you really need something to get down in there. So I believe that's all the tools that I have. I do want to just quickly go over, I went camping one time and I realized, okay, what is the essential? Because I'm not gonna bring all this stuff to go camping to make sourdough bread, right? So the very bare minimum essentials. Something to mix your bread in, right? And something to allow your bread to proof in for however long. Obviously, camping, we didn't have a fridge, so I didn't cold proof it for very long, but it does need to sit, it does need to rest. A lawn of some sort. I forgot mine when I went camping, so I cut it with like a butter knife or a steak knife. It was horrible. It worked, but I was wishing that I had my lawn. And then your Dutch oven pot. This right here. You can't bake bread without a Dutch oven pot. So those were my bare minimum essentials when I went camping. That really is all you need, but it is nice, in your home kitchen, you have all of these extra tools to make the process easier, faster, more enjoyable. So hope this helps. I will list out the tools down below in the description. So if you want to just go ahead and read through those, that will be great. And hope you have a great day and happy baking. Bye, neighbors.